being seen as the big pivot. European stock markets surged on Thursday and Wall Street pushed further into record territory. That's on signs that interest rates could have finally peaked. And as the European Central Bank and the Bank of England gave financial markets this side of the Atlantic something to cheer. UK interest rates have been held steady at 5.25%. The European Central Bank followed suit and kept its key interest rate on hold at 4%. Both of those decisions come after the US Federal Reserve on Wednesday held rates at its target range of 5.25% to 5.5%. Despite many in the markets believing that rates have peaked, the ECB is still sounding a note of caution.
The Governing Council today decided to keep the three key ECB interest rates unchanged. While inflation has dropped in recent months, it is likely to pick up again temporarily in the near term. According to the latest Eurosystem staff projections for the euro area, inflation is expected to decline gradually over the course of next year before approaching our 2% target in 2025.
Well, let's talk to the international economist, Vicky Pryce. Good to see you again, Vicky. Welcome back to the programme. So some people are calling this the big pivot. Does that mean we've done it, that we're through the worst of these high interest rates?
Unless something terrible happens, like oil prices, going through the roof again, which of course they're not showing any sign of doing, despite the cuts announced by OPEC in production, then I think, yes, this is a plateau. And yes, the markets, I suspect, are correct. They are putting in considerable faster drops in interest rates than the central banks are suggesting at present.
When you look at what the ECB is saying, though, it sounds like rate cuts weren't even on the table this time round. Why is that? Is it still concern over inflation?
I think it's concern to ensure that it's seen as being quite on top of the inflation situation, because, of course, most central banks were accused of not having seen what was happening, being asleep at the wheel, if you like. And therefore, I think that what they want to show is that they're absolutely determined to reduce inflation. What they want to also do is reduce inflationary expectations so that wages in particular don't start rising significantly just to make up for all the cost of living issues that everybody has suffered before, and also to give an indication to businesses that interest rates are going to stay high, and therefore you can't afford to give those pay rises that perhaps some people are asking for. I think there is an element of that, but what Christine Lagarde did say, the head of the European Central Bank, in the press conference, is that they will be looking at data. They'll be looking at what happens in the first quarter of 2024, and hinted that obviously if data demonstrates that perhaps their worries about inflation can be eased, then hint, we might actually see a change taking place in interest rates faster than perhaps is indicated in terms of the official, if you like, response to the interest rate decision.
Well, we're going to talk in just a minute on the programme about what happened in the United States, but it looks like a bit of a different picture there, doesn't it? Could we see a scenario where the ECB decouples, if you like, from the Fed?
It would be very difficult for the ECB to achieve that. The markets are going to be pushing, if you like, for that reduction to take place in interest rates. If the US does start cutting rates, as is indicated, by three times possibly during 2024, the markets think it could be more, and then more cuts in 2025, then it would be very, very difficult for the European Central Bank, overseeing, if you like, an economy in the Eurozone which is really not doing well at all, where there is recession threatened, where some of the countries in the Eurozone are already in recession, such as Germany, the largest country in the Eurozone. It would be very, very difficult for the ECB to maintain a high interest rate level when that pressure will be for it to ease.
Let's talk about the UK. Rates kept on hold here as well, but the market's all looking at future rate cuts. When might we see that, do you think?
I think a similar profile, but the interesting thing about the UK is that you mentioned at the ECB where there was no discussion about cutting rates. The worrying thing about the UK is that the Monetary Policy Committee, which makes those decisions, 3 members voted again to increase rates. So it's going to take a little bit of time for those who are keen to see inflation under control and worry that perhaps where we are interest rates isn't going to quite do it, get turned around and are able to vote for a decrease. So we have that technical problem, whereas at least what we've seen both in the ECB and, from what I understand, in the Federal Reserve, is there was a unanimous decision to keep rates where they were. So we have a little bit more of a problem in the UK, and of course you also have higher inflation. It's come down less fast than elsewhere, and there are serious concerns that perhaps the wage push inflation that had begun to be evident in the UK may last for a little bit longer.
Vicky, great to talk to you today. Thank you for joining us. That's the international economist, Vicky Pryce.